What has your partner's workplace done that made you so mad you went in and started threatening their boss? Last month, I walked in on my husband standing in the shower fully clothed, muttering to himself with his forehead against the wall while the water ran ice cold. I called his name 3 times before he even realized I was there. He's been a middle school teacher for 12 years. He teaches special ed. He's the kind of guy who brings home macaroni art with his name on it and proudly sticks it on our fridge like it's a Monet. So when he started sleeping on the couch, missing meals, and staring into nothing at night, I knew something wasn't right. But he wouldn't talk about it. Just kept saying, "I'm fine, babe, just tired," until that night in the shower. That's when it all came out. A few weeks prior, a new principal took over the school. The kind who wears a suit 3 sizes too tight and thinks he's running a hedge fund instead of a school. He started pushing these new metrics. Every student was supposed to hit academic benchmarks. No exceptions, including my husband's students, many of whom had cognitive impairments or learning delays. He tried to reason with the principal. They need individualized learning plans, he said. They're progressing in other ways. The principal told him, results matter more than effort. We need numbers. When my husband pushed back harder, he got written up for non-compliance. Then it got worse. The principal forced him to start administering standardized tests to students who couldn't even write their names. One of his students had a panic attack during a reading test. Another broke down crying when asked to write a paragraph. When my husband tried to modify the materials, like he's trained to do, he was accused of manipulating data, and then came the audit. The district sent a representative to observe his class. Instead of watching the actual lesson, the rep spent the whole time scribbling in a notebook and left without saying a word. That afternoon, the principal pulled him into his office and showed him a document. They were launching an investigation into whether my husband was failing to meet institutional standards. His job was on the line. They weren't just threatening his career. They were erasing the years he'd spent building trust with kids who had already been failed by every system imaginable. And the cherry on top, they reassigned his most fragile student, a nonverbal child he'd worked with for 2 years, to a general ed classroom. He needs to sink or swim, the principal said. That student had a meltdown within 30 minutes of the transfer. Security was called. My husband had to physically remove the boy and sit with him in the hallway while he screamed and banged his fists into his own face. That's what broke him. So the next morning, I did what he was too kind to do. I put on my cleanest clothes, drove to that school, and walked straight into the principal's office like I owned the building. He barely looked up from his desk. "Can I help you?" "You already have," I said, "by showing me exactly what kind of coward you are." I laid out every one of his policies, the violations of IEP laws, the forced testing, the punitive reassignments, the threats. Then I slid over my phone. On it, recordings, notes, photos. I've been collecting them from my husband's paperwork and calendar, dates, times, witnesses. "You see," I said, "I've been building a file, a nice thick one. And unless my husband is cleared of every write-up, unless his student is returned to him immediately, and unless you issue a written apology, this file goes to the school board, the district superintendent, and a parent advocacy group with 15,000 members." He laughed until I pulled out the email already drafted on my phone and showed him it was addressed and ready. That wiped the smirk right off. An hour later, my husband got a call. The investigation was dropped. His student returned, the write-up deleted. He still doesn't know what I did, and I don't care if he ever finds out.